All right, what is good, everyone? Welcome into Chatterbox Bearcats for, I believe, the 14th straight time. Post-pandemic, Houston Cougars undefeated against the Cincinnati Bearcats, 73-64. No quad one West today. The Bearcats do cover. They show some fight in the game. Jizzle James and Day Thomas combined for half of UC's points, and Day Thomas barely played in the damn game because he was in foul trouble the entire time. Aside from those two, there were just zero weapons for the Cats today. A few Bandego tip-ins. Diloon Mitchell really nowhere to be found after the first few minutes. Josh Reed is not baby Zion. We knew this, but it was all a mirage until the Cats played the number 4 team in the country. Page gives you nothing. Betsy gives you nothing. Skillings had 3 in the game, almost unplayable. We'll get into that. And then Seamus Akocious. Some chances for big stones. This was a game that if Seamus got hot, it could have been a different story. Unfortunately, the story is Houston really controls from wire to wire, aside from the first TV timeout where Cincinnati raced out to a 10-2 lead. Hudson Klauke, Chuck Walter, this is Chatterbox Bearcats. Find it on YouTube. Subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your audio podcasts, and welcome to the community. The link is going in the chat right now. This is the only call-in show on the internet pertaining to the Cincinnati Bearcats. Let's just start with giving Houston their flowers, man. I don't love giving the opposition, especially one that mimicked you and did it better, but the Houston Cougars are a damn wagon. Kelvin Sampson, I mean, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history. There's not much else to say.
It's really hard to beat Houston, let alone on the road. I mean, they've got 4 losses, and I'm just running down their schedule. Auburn, Alabama, randomly San Diego State, and Texas Tech. It is really tough to beat this team. I mean, they are physical as hell. I don't think the refs helped us whatsoever, at least in the first half. Day Thomas got in foul trouble. It was really difficult to score. This Houston team is awesome. I mean, it's just a really good basketball team. It's kind of what Iowa State and Houston are what we think that UC should be. They're kind of that old school Mick Cronin, Bob Huggins style of play, but they have a lot of damn talent too. It just sucks, Chuck, that we're in this situation where this kind of is it a must win? Maybe. Like this would have catapulted us into tournament conversation. We'd probably be in the tournament. You win this game, you're in the tournament. It just sucks that this is what we have to rely on. A road game at number 4 Houston to get into the tournament. We shouldn't be here, but I thought the guys should fight. We're not as good as Houston. Houston is a better basketball team. Kelvin Sampson is a better basketball coach. They have better players. They have better talent. They just execute. That's what they do. And they're gritty. They do all the little things too. I mean, you would have thought Houston was fighting for their tournament lives. They were playing their asses off. So, I mean,
You know what's crazy? First TV timeout. You know what I'm going to say, man. I guess it was about 6 minutes into the game. Cincinnati goes up 10-2, and I think it's Brad Nessler says, the Bearcats are pushing them around. I immediately got on Twitter and sent out the GIF of the dude from Zoolander. Yeah, baby, that's what I've been waiting for after he pulls out Magnum. That's what I had been waiting for. Kelvin Sampson calls the timeout, and the game from there, I mean, second half, UC had some really good defensive moments down the stretch that we'll get into. But the game from there was just a completely different Houston team, a completely different effort. Kelvin Sampson went into that huddle and says, we're not losing to this frickin' team. And they didn't. They really kicked our asses from there and handled from start to finish.
How about that? What was it, 10-2 to start? You're sitting there, you're going, wait a minute. Shock the world? Shock the world?
Because we were getting offensive boards.
Yeah, no, we were getting offensive boards. We were doing all that. Granted, almost immediately, we could not rebound the basketball. Defensive rebounding was disastrous to start. I mean, looking at the stat line, Houston only had 6 offensive boards. It must have been literally within the first, right after that 10-2 run, they must have had all 6 because we could not rebound to save our lives. Dan Skillings had those 3 turnovers. Then Seamus comes in, does the same thing, just throwing the ball around. Listen, I'm not going to act like we should have won this game by any means, but there was certainly opportunities to extend that early lead. Houston wasn't making shots, and we just started throwing the ball away. Like you cannot, you got to play near perfect basketball if you're going to beat Houston on the road, and we sure as hell didn't do that. I thought the guys played hard, did what they could, and they covered. I'll give them that. They covered 9 points. Probably should have been worse than that, but we'll take the cover. That's all I'll say. The silver lining.
And they did take the rebounding battle, did the Cats, 32-28. They won in that statistic, but this isn't the Houston Cougars of past in terms of their rebounding. They're like 100-something in the country. Now Cincinnati 200-something. So if Cincinnati plays like they did in terms of getting on the glass, they probably win a lot more games this season. But where the game flipped was Cincinnati's up 10-2, and Dan Skillings, man, I mean, God love his soul right now, because there are the people that came out and started calling him TikTok Dan and said he got his bag and ran. Oh, take the money and run. And everyone said that he wasn't locked in and that, he was the issue. Like, dude, he's out there fighting. We see it. We saw it especially early. He was playing hard. He was getting on the glass. He was trying to smack it out. He's just not very good at basketball right now, man. And the crazy thing is he played Houston last year, a damn good Houston team. I don't remember him looking this overmatched. It got to a point where he'd catch the ball and he didn't even feel comfortable dribbling. And I didn't feel comfortable with him dribbling it. Entry passes, not good. Defense, he's on skates the entire game. I don't know what happened to him, but it has not been good the last couple of weeks. And that's going to be an interesting development throughout the rest of the season, because Wes likes him, and he's got talent. He showed us before that he can play. He couldn't play today, man.
Well, with this roster, a lot of people are like, just sit Dan on the bench the whole game. Like, you have Dan Skillings with this roster has to get minutes. You could talk about lowering those minutes. Sure. He has to get minutes. When you're playing at Houston, he has to play, whether you like it or not. And the thing is with Dan, and I don't know what he's doing, off season. I don't know if, he's partying, whatever. I don't know. As far as like effort, I don't think it's that at all. He's tried his ass off out there. He had 6 boards. Initially, I loved his energy. The game seems too fast for him. You know what I mean? It's like when he grabs the basketball, it's like when you're playing in like a CYO league and a guy that you're just hoping that he can score a basket in a single season. Everyone's nervous just watching him hold the ball. You're like, just pass it out. You're nervous watching the guy dribble the basketball. And it's just crazy to see the transformation. I mean, Dan Skillings and Seamus Lukosius were turnover machines. I mean, those were supposed to be 2 of our 3 guaranteed, no doubt about it, contributors, and they are relegated to the bench. And honestly, they're being negatives on the floor. And either way, how you slice it, they got to play with this roster. They have to get minutes. Seamus at least hit 3s in the first half. Like you mentioned, had opportunities, open 3s, and just missed them by, an inch or 2. Could have changed the trajectory of the game. I don't think we would have won, but yeah, Dan Skillings, the mystery continues, man. I don't know what to think about
him. Tough times all around. Specifically, the Day Thomas fouls. Let's get into that early. Wes pulls him back in the first half after he picks up his second foul. The game's already starting to get out of control at that point. Picks up foul number 3. This team looks so much better with Day and Jizzle in there at the same time, specifically when they started running, when they started pressing, getting Houston out of their comfort zone. Like we've been saying all year, that's kind of their bread and butter. Today, they didn't get a full chance to showcase it with Day heading on the bench, but it comes down to roster construction. We've been saying it for a long time. I do not think Connor Hickman or Tyler McKinley would have been the saviors in that regard. I think it was just it was a misconstructed roster from the beginning. And that's where we say with the struggles that Dan has had, that there's just no one to really go to. If it's not Rayvon Griffith on the bench, you don't have anyone to go to. And we put probably a little too much stock into Dan being one of the guys, and he wasn't. And pretty much all the buttons that Wes Miller has tried to push with this team have not really worked. Now, lately, it's been the 2 guards. Aziz knows his role and does it well, I think. But the 2 guards, Jizzle and Day, are the guys for me. Jizzle James, star. Once again, the numbers that he puts up, 8 of 19. This is with the defense hounding him the entire game. Like, they know that he's option A, and they were smothering him. 8 of 19, turns it over just one time in the game. I thought he was excellent. Only so much he can do. And here's the thing. I have been out on Wes Miller. I think I'm still probably out on Wes Miller, but they're not going to fire him. So at the end of the day, I'm going to get behind our guys. I'm going to get behind the head coach that has the whistle, because what is the alternative? Are we going to go Tennessee, Greg Schiano, and run him out of – no, like that's not going to happen. So we may as well get behind him and hope that Abayev can be somewhat of a savior, or maybe we can just sneak our way into the NCAA tournament with a couple of wins down the stretch of this season. But to me, going into next year, if I want to get back onto the West hype train, it's nothing that's going to happen through the portal. It's Jizzle James, man. If he can retain Jizzle James, and Jizzle has bought in to the system and says, no, I think next year we're going to be legit, and comes back, then maybe I'll have some belief, because Kelvin Sampson saw Jizzle today. You know he's going to throw him some money. He'd look pretty damn good in Houston's offense. Other coaches are going to throw Jizzle some money if that's the case. So that's the big question mark for me, but we can tackle that heading into the offseason. Back to the game today. UC shoots 44%, 30% from deep, 11 turnovers in the game.
If we found out when Vic Locken came on the show, some players do listen, okay? And if Jizzle James is listening, I want to say this. The grass is not always greener.
You can be the savior of this beautiful, beautiful program.
The grass is not always greener. The usage rate, if you went to a Houston, you went to an Alabama, something like that, you might just be another guy. You might get lost in the shuffle. Stay with us. I'm just thinking, Chuck, in my head, I'm picturing a backcourt of Tillery, Jizzle James, Day Thomas, Abayev. He's a big guard, but he's still a guard at the end of the day. That is a core I can get behind. Like, I could see that offense flowing when you got guys like that can put the ball in the basket. And then obviously Wes can have to make moves with the other roster, specifically the interior. But if you could get that core of guys, and you're right. Like, you just got to get behind Wes, because he's going to be the coach, and we like Wes as a person. He's failed at his job over the last 4 years. Probably won't make the tournament. But if you can bring that core back, then I'm feeling, as John Gruden says, I'm feeling kind of nicey about it. Okay. So, Jizzle, stick with us. Stick with us. Let's do something special.
I'm feeling nicey. What a bit that he has leaned into since going from hard ass head coach to media personality that does not give a damn. Houston had 8 guys play in the game. All 8 guys scored. It was 6 points. It was 8 points from Roberts. It was 6. It was 9 from Sharp. Cryer had 20. Francis had 6. 10 for a guy's name that I have no idea how to say, but he was a beast. And then Malik Wilson had 8 points. Honestly, this is one of those games that you watch as a fan, and you kind of don't even know who's who for Houston, because they're all the same. They're all just athletic. They're all over the floor. They play hard. They've bought into the system. They're just – this is Houston basketball, man. We've seen it over and over again. Like, it doesn't matter who comes out, who comes in, whether it's Sharp, whether it's Shed, whether it's Rob Gray, whether it's the list goes on and on. Like, they have those surrounding pieces around their guards that are just big, athletic dudes that guard the hell out of you. There's a reason why they have the #1 defense in the country. And I mean, that's really the takeaway from today's show. Is as much as I hate to say it, Houston's in a much better spot as a program than the Cincinnati Bearcats, and Wes Miller still winless against those Houston Cougars.
I mean, Juwan Roberts, great player. We had Josh Reed matched up with Juwan Roberts to start the game, and he did fine. He finished 4 of 9 with 8 points. Like, you take that every day of the week. LJ Cryer did what he does. He had 20, but it wasn't like one guy murdered us. It's just, at the end of the day, collectively, it's just a better team. They're better coached, and it's the fact that we scored 64 when there was probably 10 minutes in the second half. I think we had 8 points in the first half. Excuse me. I was like, I don't know if we're going to reach 40. I don't know if we're going to reach 40, because that defense is crazy. That leads me to the other point, Chuck. Why in the hell? Why on God's green earth? We've seen it time and time again. We get down late, and there's 5 minutes left in the game. We're down, 12 points. And Wes Miller brings out the full court press. And it has paid massive dividends. I mean, we have the athletes to do that. I don't know why we're not pulling an Iowa State and doing this like all game. You know what I mean? It seems like it creates offense for us. We don't have to sit in the half court. We're getting steals, turnovers, getting in transition. Too little, too late. Obviously, we got 2 games left. But why isn't West decide to implement this full court press quicker than when we're down 14 with 5 minutes left? I just don't get it.
I don't know, because we've been talking about having an identity all year, and after one of these games, you said our identity is shit, Chuck. Our identity is we're just shit. And since then, we found somewhat of an identity. It's our 2 guards are the best players. Get them the ball, let them get to their spots in the mid range, and hope that your defense is good enough that night to give yourself a chance. And sometimes, as of late, it's been 70, 80, even 90 points in a game from just everyone coming on offensively at the same time. But aside from stretches, this defense has been somewhat hit or miss, a little bit shaky from time to time, but it's definitely their calling card. And it's mainly been the half court defense. It's been the calling card. So there's your answer. Their defense is good in the half court. Pressing wise, it looked good today. We'd have to go through the Saber metrics, Houdini, of every single game to know whether they're better. But I mean, I've been saying it all year. I said, get out and run. That's how we're getting our easiest baskets. And you're utilizing your strength, which is athletes. I mean, it's the Mitchells of the world. It's your quick and bouncy guards. It's your length and Dan Skillings and Bandego and all the things that you have on this team. And we haven't seen enough of it. So I agree to your point. I think if Lily was on the show today, he'd probably respond with the first answer I said, and that's we're very good in the half court D. But at the same time today, we weren't, man. They were getting to that pull up just like we were, and it seemed a little easier on their regard. And when they missed it, those 6 offensive boards early came into play.
Well, Chuck, when you're 7-11 in conference, I do think maybe adjustments need to be made. I know we have a solid where I think we're 25th in KenPom in defense. Houston is 3. But to really help your offense out is getting turnovers. And once we went to that full court press, we were getting turnovers left and right. So too little, too
Not
late.
disagreeing.
Doesn't really matter.
Not
Doesn't really
disagreeing.
matter at this point. It doesn't really matter at this point because it's not a efficient offense. And I know Day and Jizzle have been awesome, but we have just consistently relied, and all these analytical nerds out there have to be pulling their hair out, watching us take contested pull-up mid-range jumpers. And I'm not against the mid-range jumper, right? It's fine. It works for these guys. But statistically, like, hey, that's not going to win you a lot of games if all you're taking is contested mid-range jumpers with undersized guards. Like, that can't be your only offense. And that seems to be our only offense. I mean, those guys accounted for over half of our shots. So when you got a guy like Diloon Mitchell and Aziz Bandego with 5 and 6, really hard to win, man. Like, figure it out.
We'll get to the notes in a minute. The notes are some of my favorite parts of the show, obviously, because we both jot them down during the game. And they get spicy at times, and then you look back on them 45 minutes later, and you're like, that's a little bit irrelevant. But we'll get to that. First of all, the super chat, $2 from Christian Wolf. We appreciate it. Is the baseball program going to be any good? It's looking that way. I mean, first top 25 ranking in school history. We're focused on basketball right now, but we'll worry about that when that day comes. And hopefully they're competing for a Big 12 championship, which would be competing for a national title to some degree. All right. So backstage right now, we have, with no camera on, it says Chad Brendel. So someone's going to have to tell me if he's live, Houdini. Now, typically I'd say there's no way Chad's calling into the program, but after the whole Victor Locken thing, you never know. So here's Chad. How are you, Chad?
Yeah,
this is great podcasting. All right. He came in to sabotage the show, apparently. I don't know who that was, if it was Chad or not, but you're in the wrong StreamYard if that's the case, my man. So the notes, let's get to them. I was really, really intrigued by that, and we got nothing.
Oh,
call back.
He's gone now.
Yeah, he's gone
just
now.
Jumped off completely. All right, Chad,
so
appreciate you joining.
Yeah, into the notes. We got at halftime, Wes was in the locker room, and I wanted to cue up the Coach Klein clip from the Water Boy when he pokes his head out of the locker and he says, does anybody have any ideas? I mean, we were so overmatched in this basketball game, man. The fact that we covered, the fact that we lost within single digits, the fact that there were 2 5-minute stretches where we looked as good as Houston was incredible, because there were times in this game where I feel like we couldn't even dribble against this team. Legit could not dribble, or didn't try at least.
No, we looked really ugly at times, and that just shows you what this team could be. We were never going to be better than Houston, obviously, but the fact that we're not a tournament team, like most likely we're not a tournament team, just sucks, because you can see that this team, to not be like an 11 seed, like, we saw Arkansas get blown out of the gym by South Carolina, and I was like, you know what, that's huge for UC. That's huge for UC, and we blew it. And I hate to mention it, I know it's like saying Voldemort on this show, but Xavier beat the living shit out of Creighton today too.
They
So
were
just
camping
icing
out.
on,
They were
yeah,
camping
they're
out for that
camping out.
quad 2 win.
Yeah, it's a quad. It's a quad two, folks. Calm down. Calm down. It's a quad two. But either way, I mean, you beat Creighton by 30. I mean, I'd be much happier than losing to Houston by 10 on the road. It's just, it's tough, Chuck. It's really tough to swallow this. We're still, listen, I know everyone's going nuts. We lost to the number 4 ranked team in the country, who will be a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, the best team in the Big 12. We weren't expected to win this game. Regardless, even if we stuck with our high ceiling when we started out, 18th in the country, we were still not going to be favored to win this game no matter what. If we were 10th in the country, no team in the country would be favored on the road against Houston. So this doesn't absolutely kill us, but if the committee doesn't take into account Big 12 tournament play, which they did not last year at all, then we're just fucked. I mean, we're screwed. There's no way we're getting it. So hopefully something crazy can happen and we can sneak in, because I do think this team could win a first round matchup. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I've said for a while now, I do think we're a tournament team, but that's just because the bubble is terrible, right? Like, being a tournament team is not really a ton to hang your hat on. It just means you're literally at the very bottom of average in your conference. So, is what it is. I guess unless you're what, Northwestern, they've only made the tournament like 4 times. They've all come in the last 10 years or whatever, but hell, they've made it more than us the last 6 years. So can't really talk about Northwestern anymore. I mean, hell, Minnesota won today on the road. So I don't know who we are as a program. Anyways, I got a little get off my lawn takes coming. First of all, the prank call and the program, that's one that I did not see coming. He just came in with Chad Brendel as his name and started breathing really heavy. Have no idea who that was. It could have been anyone. Like, we put that link out to the public.
It derailed the whole show. It derailed everything. We had a rhythm going. We were clicking on all cylinders. Brendel, quote unquote, Chad Brendel came in, just ruined the whole show. I mean, come on, give me something. Say something. He just breathed into the phone like it was a horror film. And now I'm a little worried. I'm checking out my window. I'm like, is somebody outside? Ugh.
Yeah, we're only taking in the callers with the camera on from now on after that debacle. They found a loophole. People have found a loophole how the prank call can be reintegrated into society on the Chatterbox Bearcats postgame show. Okay, I also put down in the notes, this is March. Welcome, everyone, to March 1st. John Rothstein has changed his shorts 14 times today. I also put down the ending of the game before us. It really culminated everything that are my worst nightmares. First of all, the game was not available for streaming for me. I don't know how you're able to watch the beginning of these games, Houdini. You're a magician with the streaming. How do you do it?
It's pretty simple. You just go to cbssports.com and it's just right there. So I watched.
What do you have to do? You have to have a username?
No, you don't. So they screwed up on the last couple of ones where it said just go to cbssports.com, and then it was like you got to enter your cable shit, and then that's when I threw
I don't have
into the
cable.
brick wall. Right? Yeah. What are you talking about, dude? I'm not 68. I don't have Time Warner anymore. Yeah, you just go to cbssports.com. I watched Diloon Mitchell nail a 3, and I was like, if Diloon Mitchell's hitting threes, this thing could open up. And so I at least got this, have a little bit of joy for a small amount of time in this game. And that was when I was on. I should have watched the whole damn thing on the website. I should have just been on www.cbssports.com, and that probably would have changed the mojo of the entire game. But Yeah, the staggered times. Don't even get me started, dude. Give it 15 goddamn minutes. The St. John's in Seton Hall.
That's what I was going to say, man. The final 60 seconds took 25 minutes. So while you're watching the Bearcats game, they flipped it over with 14 minutes to go. I'm getting the post-game reaction of a 12-point game because St. John's has won the Big East tournament. And guess who I wanted as our head coach instead of John Brannon? I wanted Pitino. And Pitino's taking St. John's to the title. I'm sitting here waiting for my team to come on. I mean, thank God it didn't flip in a 10-2 game the other way. But the fact that it flips to Cincy 10-2 and I immediately watch the rest of the game losing basketball, life's tough, man. Life is tough. And the fact that it's Houston that's flipped the script on us, that's my final thought. Their fans were awesome. And there was a time 10 years ago where they legit did not have fans in that arena. It was empty. And I remember those days, and they have flipped it fast.
Well, first off, about the broadcast, Seton Hall, I think, has 7 wins on the season. And they were down 10 with literally 40 seconds left. And they just kept it on the channel. And then you're right, they did like a post-game reaction. I was like, dude, get the Houston UC game on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, is anybody like, everybody's just brain dead at the entire network? Like, what are we talking about?
That's the Pitino effect. That's the Pitino effect, man. That's what they do for Rick Pitino. I'm telling you, if that was, let's go with a different conference. Quite frankly, if that was Houston securing the Big 12 championship today against Cincinnati, and there was a game on after, they would not have done that same coverage. They would have flipped it because they had like 5 minutes.
It's weird though. It's weird though because like I don't know if it was UC and UCF playing, maybe I could see it, but it's like Houston is the number 4 team in the country. Like this is not some low key basketball program. They are perennial power right now. You'd think you'd want to get them on. Either way, did you hear in the broadcast, if you were listening to it, the fan that was screaming at Wes Miller in the second half? He's like, "Shut the hell up, Wes Miller! Nobody wants you, Wes!" And it was fully broadcasted on CBS. It was electric. I'm like, who is there? Is one of my buddies? I was like, nobody says that to my coach except for me and Chuck on the post game when he pisses us off. Okay, who did that? But that was loud and clear broadcasted to national television. But it was interesting. They had the guy going on for like 15 seconds.
I didn't hear that, man. Was it a Cats fan, you think?
I don't know. Like the passion in his voice made it seem like it had to have been a UC fan because he was so energetic about the way he said it, and his voice carried throughout the stadium, even caught the mics. It had to have been a UC guy that lives in Houston. He transplanted to Houston years ago, and he's been going to Houston games now, and he sees what basketball should be, and he just let loose. He's probably with his kid, too. He's got like a 3-year-old son, and he's just going off on this coach.
I'm letting loose, and the Houston fans that are watching this show, they know the reason why. They watched us do this to them for years, just ragdoll them and be a premier program. The difference was we could never get over that hump, man. Like we could never get to the Sweet 16, even in some of our prime years. It seems like Houston is a lock to get to the Sweet 16 every single year. They've adopted the Cincinnati method. They got their Hall of Fame coach in. They kind of surpassed or got to the same level as Mick, right? We were beating them in the conference championships. We were splitting in the regular season, but it was like neck and neck. As soon as Cronin went, it has not been the same, clearly. John Brannon, the only coach since to beat him, which he did at Fifth Third Arena in that Zach Harvey game, the last time Cincinnati beat the Houston Cougars. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of the show, which is the bubble and the Cincinnati Bearcats, as they are now 7-11 in the conference, 17-12 overall. Kansas State, senior day, Oklahoma State on the road. You win both of those games. How are we feeling? That's the question, Houdini. I mean, how are we feeling?
Well, it comes down to UCF lost another one, so that's not going to turn into a quad one. Baylor should turn into a quad one, which would put us at 2 quad one wins. And if you look at the bubble, it's not great, but the quad one scenario, we're struggling there. We have the most quad 2 wins in the country. And we kind of said it facetiously, like, Wes is the best quad 2 coach in the country. He literally is. He has the most quad 2 wins in the country. So if you do the thing where you combine the quad 1 and quad 2 record, we actually look pretty good relatively. Now, if they don't take into consideration the Big 12 tournament, because there's an opportunity for us to win 2. I mean, you have to win 2 no matter what, and they got to be quad 2, quad 1 wins. We'll see what happens, but Oklahoma State and Kansas State are not going to move the needle. Right? Like if you won this game, it's like we're like pencil us into the tournament. Like we're getting in. And then you got to do the bubble watch thing, which changes every. I'm a little disgusted that the SEC had a great out of conference slate because we're talking about teams that are like 4-12 in conference. They're like, oh, they're going to be a 10 seed. I'm like, what the hell? 4-12? You want to put them in the tournament? Like an Oklahoma, for example, or an Arkansas. I'm like, I don't even know why these teams are considered, but they do have some statement wins, which UC just doesn't have. We don't have that Houston, that Texas Tech, a Kansas. We don't have that win on our resume, and it's going to kill us when it comes down to Selection Sunday. But at this point, you're still in the mix. We're not going to drop out. We'll probably be next 4 out still when the next bracketologist, posts his thing, and there's 8,000 of them now. So we're still in the mix. Like you got it. It's not like you just throw the season away. You still got to play these games, see what happens. Some teams could falter, but we're definitely on the outside looking in. No question about that.
Yeah, and there's no rhyme or reason to like our resume is truly a curious case because no bad losses, not a single one. Well, I mean, what's the worst loss of the season? You had to go through it.
Let's say Utah on the road.
Utah on the road.
Like,
that's
come
your
on.
worst loss of the season. Like, it's not bad, but what's your best win? I mean, BYU and Baylor, you could make a case. Hey, we beat a couple of decent teams, but Baylor's been just that. They've been decent since the injuries racked up, and there's just not that signature one. And you had chances to get that signature one. Texas Tech at home, Arizona at home, even Kansas at home. And you lost all these games to where if you're on the outside looking in, the only people that they have to blame are the 20 people that are in that locker room. Like that's the fact of the matter. But if we got in at the same time, then it's like, okay, I could see why they got in. It's because look, Houdini, in a nutshell, here's what I'm trying to say. The fact that this team cannot get into the NCAA tournament is alarming. It's not that hard. The bubble's atrocious. He's had 4 years to get it done. It is alarming, but we can't do anything about it. If we had the Brinks truck, Cunningham West, they'd be out the door. We'd be getting Patino back. We would have gotten Patino 6 years ago if I was in charge. But guess what? I'm not. They don't listen to me.
Right. And we have no option except for supporting Wes Miller at this point. And he would agree. Like if we had him on the show, if Wes listened to the show, he would come on and be like, I've been an objective failure. Like you can't tell me you're UC's head basketball coach and you've coached 4 seasons, you don't make the NCAA tournament. And you can even argue, even if you did make the NCAA tournament, still a failure. Like you're not a real contender. You're not a contender in the Big 12. You're not even finishing the top half of your league. That's a problem. That's a massive problem if you're coaching the University of Cincinnati. Like we have standards, and the standards at this point are not that high. They're not that damn high. Make the tournament as an 11 seed. Do the damn play-in at Dayton. Hell, I don't give a shit, but make sure I'm not playing. And I got a lot of flack for this when I was like, would we accept an NIT bid? I was like, they're contractually obligated to play in the Crown. I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit. I think you understood my point. If we're playing in these bullshit tournaments that isn't March Madness, if Rothstein isn't covering it, I don't want to be a part of it. And technically, I think we're obligated to play in the Crown if we don't make the NCAA tournament. From like a Big 12, I think it's SEC, Big 10. The top 2 teams that don't make it are obligated to play, which little intrigued by what that actually means. How can you force a team to play in a postseason tournament they don't want to play in? So we'll see how that works, but it's looking like we're going to the Crown.
What the hell is the Crown? Truly, what the hell is? I've been hearing the name, and I'm locked into college basketball. Like I watch every single UC game. I sit on message boards from time to time. I hop on Reddit. I follow Twitter. I truly, aside from people saying like UC is going to go to the Crown, I truly don't know what it is. Can you enlighten me?
Crown. It sounds like a money grab from whatever our broadcast partnership is with the Big 12, where they're basically poaching out of the NIT and they're taking, it's like the top 2 teams are guaranteed to get in or forced to get in, allegedly. Like they're at gunpoint, you're playing in this tournament. It's 2 teams from the Big Ten, 2 teams from the SEC, and 2 from the Big 12. And then they do an at-large thing. The NIT still exists too, though. So you could possibly go to the NIT.
I'd rather
but
be in the crown. I never want to play in the NIT again. I've had enough of that tournament. The fact that they can't even win it, they can't even get to like the Final Four. And I know it's not in the Garden anymore. I think it's in Hinkle, which would have been cool because it's an easy drive up to Hinkle Fieldhouse. It's a relic. It's historic. No, they can't even get there. Last year it was a loss to Iowa State. The year before it was a loss to Aziz Bandago and the Utah Valley Wolverines. And then before that, we lost to Bradley in the CBI, and before that, we lost to South Carolina in the NIT with when James White was suspended for being an academically ineligible. I mean, if you can't even win these tournaments, just don't join them.
It's fine when it's your first year as the coach. Like, it's like, hey, let's get more games under our belt. Let's do that.
It was fine last year because you were trying to extend it into the next year, right? You're like, all right, let's give Jizzle a chance as the starting point guard. Let's figure out our rotations for the next year. But we've already established that if this team comes back as currently constructed, we got bigger issues, fellas. We got bigger issues.
And I'll just, don't bury the lead here. This team will not come back as currently constructed. They're going to have to do a massive overhaul. Unless Wes is a complete idiot, which I don't think he is. They're going to have to reconstruct this entire roster. And like I said, the guys that I 100% want back, Jizzle James, if Day Thomas, if that JUCO rule, apparently talking to the sources, says it is legit, that Day has more eligibility, you bring him back. And Betsy, I think you still have to see what he is. You bring Betsy back. And then you got Abayev, Tillery, McKinley, allegedly, was the greatest basketball player to ever play in the preseason before he got injured. Then you have a core. Then you have a core in Dan Skillings. He's definitely going to be a guy that leaves and goes to Kansas State or something and averages like 16. Like, we just know that for a fact. But it's not. It doesn't look like it's working out at UC. And I think I like Dan Skillings. He seems like a nice kid. And like we were talking about, his energy level's there, but it doesn't seem like this is the right environment for him right now. And maybe a different scenery for everybody. We all benefit from that. So I think he's going to have to overhaul damn near this whole thing, but keep 4 core guys. And then I think we could do something. I really do.
I do think this comment is interesting from Sean Connor because he says the bigger issues are the Wes Miller offensive basketball philosophies. True throughout the entire game, but I saw it again today out of timeouts. Now, Aziz missed the layup, but was that not a perfect call? Like, he dials up. He dials up some offense.
Chuck?
What's up?
The only issue with that call, it was a perfect call. He had a great look. The issue with the call was that it went to Aziz Bandago. Not a guy that I want doing basically anything besides dunking it. And hey, credit to Aziz. I'm not an Aziz hater. Great to his standards, great free throw shooter now. Abysmal last year. Now he's shooting over 60% clip. Not a guy I'm drawing up a play to, almost under any circumstance. So that was the only issue. They should have flopped it. Granted, Diloon Mitchell's a better screener than Aziz Bandago, so I get kind of why they did that. But you're right. He draws up some good plays out of timeouts, out of bounds, under the basket. He can draw up some plays. It's like, but the general offense, we got to figure out a way. I mean, I'm talking elementary level shit where you get a little bit of motion, screening, rescreening, slip cuts to the basket, like all this stuff that you see in grade school level basketball. We're just watching Jizzle and Day dribble around. And unfortunately, our guy, our Lord and Savior, Josh Reed, really, you could tell the talent level wasn't quite up to par with what Houston was doing because it was basically like he gets the ball and he has to pass it. So it's tough when you have guys on the floor like that they're not an offensive threat. They have to be doing stuff off the ball, nothing on the ball. They can't create their own shot. So, at some point, it's you got to blame, the roster construction. How much can he really do with this team? But you would like to see a little more fluid offense, guys moving around. There's guys sitting in the corner. We got Dan Skillings sitting in the corner like he's JJ Redick. Like, you're a 24% 3-point shooter, man. Like, we got to move.
when we tried getting some movement in there, and when Simos tried to get into the lane, those doubles would come. And I mean, how many times did those passes get tipped and Houston went the other way? Betsy tried to throw one cross court, intercepted, lay up the other way, should have been an and one. Like, just the talent level. You're right. And we've said this every year now. And this was supposed to be the year where we didn't say it, because every single season Wes has been here, every single one, he's gone up to the podium at some point during a losing streak. Because let's not forget, year one, they started off pretty hot. That win over Illinois, they played Arkansas tough, and then they really sputtered down the stretch of the American play in his first year. Second year, same thing happens. He says, I believe we have the team. We've been a good team. We will be a good team. He said that every year. Said it last year. I kind of saw it last year in spurts. This was supposed to be the year where he said it and we believed it, and no one believes it right now. Like, we have an all right team. We don't have a good team. We have an all right team against a good team. We got our asses handled once again today. Can they be an all right team that makes the NCAA tournament and wins a game? Sure, maybe. That is what we are rooting for right now. But again, year 4, and we have another all right team at best. And unfortunately, in a good conference, they're not all right. They are extremely below average now, 7-11 in the Big 12. I'm very confident there's going to be no slander on this show. That was not Brendel. He was doing his own thing, I'm sure. And we saw another one of those prank calls popping in without a camera, and the name just confirmed that it was indeed. The second name was Brandon Kleeman.
Went to high school with him. Shout out Brandon Kleeman, brother. It might have been him. I don't know. Well,
I said, turn your camera on. We created a new rule, real time. The call-in show is only applicable if the camera's on. If you're afraid of your face, sorry about it. You're not getting on the show, because they have found a loophole, whoever it was, to really just take a stranglehold on the great post game that is Chatterbox Bearcats. That's really all I got to say, man. Kansas State coming up next. This is a game that we knew the Cats were not going to win coming in, and you lost by 9. You covered. We won some money, so we'll take that. I did not touch the money line. We got 14 in the hook, so no sweat from us. It's Kansas State on the 5th of March. Do the math. I think that's Thursday. It's a game you got to win. If you want any chance of the NCAA tournament, you got to win, but it's going to be tough. That's all I got to say. That's kind of the theme of the show. You've dug yourself in a hole. All the really, really, really good opponents in the regular season are off the schedule. You got sub 500 Big 12 teams the rest of the way. So whether you're in or not depends on how those people and how the robots are feeling about the Cincinnati Bearcats on a Sunday a few weeks from today. Final thoughts.
The Kansas State game, clarifying, is on a Wednesday, 7:00 Wednesday. We could easily lose that game. We know that. They got talent. I mean, we saw it when we played them on the road. They pretty much controlled the game, start to finish. Listen, even if we don't make the tournament, at least finish the season strong. Get some momentum. And we've literally beat a dead horse with this. Wes Miller, 4 years, probably not going to make a tournament in any one of those seasons. It's unacceptable. He knows that. The extension is ridiculous. It is what it is. The buyout's crazy. But I will give him credit, Chuck. I will give him credit, because when we were 2-8 in conference and looked like one of the worst offenses in college basketball history, he has certainly pushed on some buttons, tweaked lineups, done things that I didn't think he would even do, because he liked to always stick with his guns regardless of what happened. He made some adjustments. At this point, you're looking at the roster, you're going, I don't think we have the talent. But we're a tournament team. If you got rid of January, we're a tournament basketball team. So finish the damn season strong. We'll still be watching. We'll be rooting for you. Get 2 wins, and then maybe do something in the tournament. And then maybe we'll be dancing. Who knows?
Now's the time to tell you that Houdini and myself have been severed from Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. So this is the any version of us at work. I wonder what the Audis feel that don't know anything about this pain, because it's been brutal, man. It's been brutal. This is now potentially 6 years that they'll miss the NCAA tournament. It was long during the Cronin years. It's felt even longer, man. I mean, pre-global pandemic, the last time the Bearcats made a tournament. We've had, three separate presidents, I guess two, but three separate terms now since the last time the Cats made the NCAA tournament. It's been a travesty. However, I'll say this, the community we formed here on Chatterbox Bearcats, aside from the prank callers, it's been nothing short of spectacular. 314 people dialed into the show. There'll be hundreds more on the audio podcast and hundreds more on the aftermath on YouTube. And you're dialing into a show on a Saturday for a team that loses almost every big game. I mean, almost every single big game.
Chuck, my innie and outie that I found out here recently, they're both fucking pissed. They're both diehard UC guys. They're furious. They're just absolutely furious. I thought it would be different. It's not.
You took the note up to the outie through the elevator.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I took the note in, and then it said like, don't take UC money line. Of course, my innie took the UC money line. Whatever, it is what it is. At this point, Chuck, like, it's going to feel good when we finally get across that finish line. We finally go to the next level, if it ever does happen. I feel like we're young enough, trajectory-wise, just statistically, we should live at least another 50 years. I got to think one of those years we could get in the tournament. Just odds. Just playing the odds at this point.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The fans, you're right, Pluto. Can't fault the fans. Still selling out, getting 11, 12K every single game, no matter the results, no matter the team you're playing. I mean, it was Howard early in the year, you're getting 11K, and you're getting 11, 12K for Arizona State and for Utah and some of the bottom feeders in the Big 12. So fans are still invested. They're still doing their part on the post-game show. There's no apathy. We're bringing the energy after W's. Unfortunately, we have not, in 2 years now of doing this show, we have not had a chance to have one of those games where it's like, oh my God, UC just – I mean, we kind of did it for BYU. We're like, oh my God, how did we win that game? It was more so the beatdown, the 18-point beatdown of BYU. But still to this day, I mean, we were getting ready to bust out the apologies to Wes Miller for 3 games a row in the Big 12. Granted, not 3 traditional Big 12 teams like we said, but we were going to let it slide for Houston, obviously, top 5 team in the country. But that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen this regular season. We'll be back-to-back seasons below 500 in the Big 12. The best the Bearcats can do is 9-11. Lately, that's been good enough from time to time to get teams in the tournament. Now, is the Big 12 a good enough conference to get a 9-11 team in the tournament? We'll see. Does the conference tournament even factor in if the Cats were to make a run to the championship and lose? We'll see. Are we even on the bubble? We'll see. I have no idea. But guess what? I'm going to show up. I'm going to do every single one of these games with this logo on. And then I'm going to go upstairs and immediately my eyes are going to do something weird and my Audi's not going to know a damn thing about this team, and life will be better because it's tough to do these as much as we've done them. So any final thoughts finally?
Nope. God bless and good night. And hopefully somehow, some way they could sneak into the damn tournament. That's all I got.
God bless, everyone. We will see you after Kansas State. Don't tell me how rocky the sea is. Just bring the ship in. But right now, we are stranded at sea, and we've been stranded there for 6 years. We're starting to have beards, everyone. See ya.